Svein Knutsson c. 1016–1035 was the son of Cnut the Great, King of Denmark, Norway, and England, and his first wife Ælfgifu of Northampton, a Mercian noblewoman. In 1017 Cnut married Emma of Normandy, but there is no evidence that Ælfgifu was repudiated, and in 1030 Cnut sent her and Svein as regents to rule Norway. However, the rule was considered oppressive by the Norwegians, and they were expelled in 1034. They imposed new taxes and harsh laws that made them unpopular. In William Shakespeare's Macbeth, there is a character called Svein, the Norway's king, based on Svein. Names Svein Knutsson is also mentioned as Svein Ælfgifu and under the epithet of Konung. In Norwegian, his name is Svein Knutsson. In Danish, Svein Knutsson. Many variations of the name are used, including Sven and Swain, from the Anglo-Saxon Swagen. He was the second ruler of Norway by this name, after his grandfather Sweyn Forkbeard. Biography. In 1029 Håkon Eriksson, Cnut's vassal ruler of Norway, was lost at sea, and Olaf Haraldsson, who had been deposed as king of Norway by Cnut, tried to recapture the kingdom, but he was defeated and killed at the Battle of Stiklestad. Cnut then sent Sven and Ælfgifu to Norway, with Ælfgifu ruling as regent on behalf of her 14-year-old son. This came as a great disappointment to a number of Norwegians who had wished to take the place of the Earls of Lade. Nobles like Einar Tambarskjelv and Kalvarnessen were especially disappointed because they both believed that Cnut had promised they could take power. The 1030s were difficult years in Europe. Danish policy in Norway changed. There was closer royal involvement and strict regulations in many areas. This created the basis of a popular resistance against the new regime, which can be characterized as being of the same ilk as that which St. Olav had earlier come up against. According to the sagas, Ælfgifu's and Sven's tax demands and new laws created resentment. Snorri writes that King Sven brought in new laws on many subjects. They were modeled on Danish laws, but some were much stricter. No man was allowed to leave the country without the king's permission. If he did so, his property would become the king's. A person who committed murder would lose the right to land and property. If an outlaw was due an inheritance, the king would take it. At Christmas, every farmer had to give the king a measure of malt from every hearth and the thigh of a 3-year-old ox. This was called vinjartod in Old Norse, and also a bucket of butter. According to the Heimskringla, the Battle of Sonnarsund occurred during 1033 in Ryfylke. Tryggve the Pretender came with an army from England. He said he was the son of Olaf Tryggvason and therefore claimed the kingdom as his own. When word reached Svein Ælfgifu and Ælfgifu that Tryggve's invasion was imminent, they summoned the landholders of Halageland and the Trondheim district to join the royal army in resisting Tryggve. Svein Knutsson and his army, probably including elite Danish troops, stood against them. Sven and his forces made the way south to Agder, believing that Tryggve would attempt to slip through the Skagerrak and join his supporters in Viken. Tryggve, however, landed instead in Hordaland, then sailed to Rogaland to attack Sven's navy. The two fleets met off the island of Bokn. Sven won the Battle of Sonnarsund and Tryggve Olavsson was killed. An account preserved in Morkinskinna relates that Tryggve was actually killed by a farmer after the battle. Later that same winter, Kalvarnessen and Einar Tambarskjelv met and decided to travel to Gardarike to fetch Olav Haraldsson's son Magnus. When Magnus came to Norway, the people sided with him and against the Danes. Sven had to flee home to Denmark, where he died a short time later. Thus the King of Denmark had to give up his claim on Norway. As a character in Shakespeare, Sven is a backstory character in the first act of Macbeth, where Shakespeare calls him Sweno. His army arrived in Fife and began massacring Scots. He besieged Macbeth in the castle of Bertha. Duncan, the Scottish king, sent food and drink to the Norwegians, but laced it with a potion that caused them to become sleepy. Macbeth then slaughtered Swino's army, but Swino himself escaped. Cnut and the Danes arrived to avenge this defeat, but they agreed to a truce. Swino, the Norway's king, craves composition, nor would we deign him burial of his men till he disbursed at St. Combs Inch $10,000 to our general use. Family tree.